Y'all have the right passion to shift global conversations, not just as participants, but as leaders. We keep saying, and I mean, I grew up in the youth movement, and it was a mantra that I guess people got sick of me saying. Young people are not the leaders of tomorrow. Young people are the leaders of today. And we need to stop waiting and waiting and wait. Just do it. Just do it. You have something to say. What you have to say is just as important as somebody on the other side of the globe. Do not feel like you are not smart enough, articulate enough, pretty enough, good looking enough. You don't have everything put together. You don't have the studio full of lights. You don't have the 20,000 followers that you need. Say it and know why you are saying it. Know your purpose. Know what it is you want to achieve, the impact that you want to have. And the people who are supposed to hear you, the people who are supposed to support you, the people who are supposed to collaborate you, they will find you.
Hello, Alicia. How are you?
I am well, thank you, Quinn. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Even better now that you're on with me. Now that we can have this long-awaited conversation, and I want to give you the opportunity first and foremost to tell my audience who you are from your own perspective. I like to start there. I think that's the best way to start.
Well, you see, Quinn, that's a really hard question because I am multifaceted. My name is Alicia Ali. I am from St. Lucia, born and bred Vieux Fort before transplanting to the north of the island, Castries, Grizzly area. I run my own startup, social impact startup across the global south. I help governments, multilateral agencies, development partners translate complex policies into stories, things that are relatable that people can actually feel and understand and act on. So, in essence, my work spans strategic communication, facilitation, capacity building, story architecture, narrative design. So, whether I'm helping shape messages for international organizations or producing documentaries on the global south and our livelihoods or designing frameworks for the care economy, my purpose remains the same. I bridge the gap between policy and people.
Beautiful, beautiful. You said that you're several things, but I think you summed it up very well. I can tell that you're a storyteller. Sometimes we have to, as storytellers, we have to make things shorter than we actually want them to, so it can remain interesting. And that was a pretty interesting introduction. So I really like that. I enjoyed that. So okay, let's go a little bit deeper into what you just said. So
Mhm.
you're from the Caribbean. You're Saint Lucian in particular. Um, how did you even get into this storytelling space? I know that might be a crazy, difficult question to answer, but I'm asking it regardless. Tell me, how did you get into the storytelling space if you can remember?
Well, it's not even that difficult. I have always been a chatterbox.
Okay.
Everybody can tell you that. From the time I was at preschool, Mrs. Charlie's preschool in Black Bay, to going to primary school at the Plainview Combined in Larry Shoes in Viewfort, going to Viewfort Compre Campus A, going to the St. Joseph's Convent for the latter part of my secondary school years, and heading up to Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Everybody who's ever known me knows I always have a storytelling. I'm
Okay.
always giving a story. I have always been a creative. And a lot of the times, especially growing up, telling stories was a way to get people to understand my perspective, understand what I was thinking and what I was feeling and what I wanted. It was a way for me to communicate. Because a lot of times, sometimes we are very straightforward and direct. And the thing is, communication is a two-way street. It's not just about what you say, it's how somebody interprets and receives what you say, right? And a lot of the times, that latter part gets lost in translation. So sometimes that's why we have all these misunderstandings. That is why we have people who can't get on the same page because as much as you think you're saying what you need to say, people are not receiving it in the way you intend them to.
Got you. Got you. And I would agree with that 100%. Storytelling, at least from my perspective, is probably the best way to get any point across, because people relate to relatable things and stories. We can all relate to stories. You can all relate to, you know, something might not necessarily have happened to you in the exact same way, but for example, let's say, you know, I forgot my wallet at home. Anybody can relate to that, because you know, somebody has forgotten something that was important in their lives. So I like that, and I would agree with that 100%. So then, how does one utilize stories to influence policy?
Well, I mean, policy, it's about people. And the thing is, a lot of times it gets really technical
Yes.
and with very big words and data and all those numbers and percentages and charts, and it makes it very difficult
Mm-hmm.
to relate the policy to the people that the policy was put in place for. A lot of times we get caught up in the project management language, in the technocratic language, in the bureaucratic language, and we forget that the policies are in place for people like us, for people who are on the ground. And so, really, it's a no brainer. What I do is also because I am technically trained, I can go through the policy, but also because I am a creative, because I work in media and communication and filmmaking and all of these other things, creative writing, I can then start to form the stories that the data is based upon, so that people like you and me and people who are taking the bus to work or from work on an afternoon understand what is being done for them. How does it affect them, their loved ones, their communities, their lives? And so that is what I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're making it relatable to the average person. Got you,
Yes.
got you. So then, how does one balance storytelling with, you know, advising these government agencies? Because you know, ultimately we want these individuals to make decisions, and the stories are for social change, but you know, we are utilizing storytelling. So how do you balance, you know, the serious, I'm not saying the stories are not serious, but the more serious part with, you know, the storytelling?
Well, both parts are serious, to be
Yes.
fair. So,
Mm.
what it is, you have to understand the balance. Storytelling is important. Yes, that is where you let your creativity, your imagination, you weave something together that is so amazing and impactful and relatable to somebody. But it has to be rooted in fact. It has to be rooted in reality. And that is what the policy is. The policy will say, okay, you know what, we need to open 5 new schools because we just simply do not have the capacity to accommodate the amount of children that are going to be coming up in 5, 10 years, right? So that's a policy, but it's not relatable. So if I say, listen, there's a young boy, Quinn and he's 5, lives in Roseau, in a few years, he's going to come up to primary school and secondary school, and he's going to have to take a bus or walk 10, 15, 20 miles each day, rain or shine. And he needs a school close by in his community where people can look out for him. He's closer to his family. He is able to feel safe and valued and appreciated. Doesn't that hit a little bit better than we need more schools?
It does. It really does. Yeah, because now I know that, okay, this is an actual, well, an individual, an actual individual. Whether it's a made up story, a fictional story or not, I can feel it more because it's a story, and you know, you have used human characters which I can relate to. Whether I am actually the quintessence that you're referring to, or I have a brother or a son or an
Mhm.
individual, you know, within my family space who needs a school, or I know somebody within like my community who needs a school, it's more relatable. So yes, I would agree with that. And yes, I like that you emphasize that the storytelling itself is also important, aligned with, you know, the policy making. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's get into to your work itself. Is there any policy that you helped influence that you can think of, that really changed your perspective, on deep meaningful topics? So it could be like, for example, on youth, on gender equity? I know these are two things that you tend to focus on. Maybe even you can touch on reparations as well, because I know in my research I saw some of that as well. So is there anything that you've worked on that has really changed your perspective?
You know, the wonderful thing about working in the Caribbean is the different perspectives. You can always think you know and you're an expert on a subject, and then a topic comes up, and we always learn new things.
Mm-hmm.
I have worked on so many policies. I cannot tell you how many because I truly do not
Don't
know.
know.
I really don't know. I have worked on a lot of them, and a lot of them stood out for me and still stand out for me today. I think, in essence, with every policy, I always say data informs, stories transform, and leadership delivers. One of the most recent policies that I have been working behind the scenes on is unpaid care work in the Caribbean. So,
Mm-hmm.
unpaid care work is the invisible labor that holds up our economies: the cooking, the cleaning, the looking after the kids, the taking care of the elderly and the persons with disabilities. You know, it is a burden that we have in the Caribbean that really limits what we can achieve. And it was not until I started getting into that policy and doing the focus groups and talking to people do I understand the critical nature of our situation, our dire situation here in the Caribbean, because you have qualified Caribbean professionals who, if just given a little bit of support, could take over the world. But they turn down jobs. They take lower paying jobs because it allows them to take care of their family, or to be there for the people who need them. There are people who are not living up to their full potential because of the limitations that they have in their personal domestic home space, and that really affects our labor force productivity. It affects our GDP, and overall it affects our sustainable advancement as a Caribbean, because this is a problem that we have not really addressed as well as we could. So that is something, that stands out to me.
Absolutely. Wow. I Yes, and I've never really thought of that, in terms of, the unpaid care. And we see that in so many families and so many realities in the Caribbean, that these we have these individuals who have to take care of, whether it be an elderly person, or whether it be even in some situations where you have a family member with special needs, where you have to take that time off. And wow, yeah, there is a need for support in that regard, and I can just imagine the conversations that have been had behind closed doors. So yeah, I would actually like to see your work on that, actually. That might make for an interesting article, or just interesting reading for me. So I would love to see that.
Most definitely, I'm happy to share it with you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So so Caribbean creatives like myself want to use media for impact. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to do that? I like utilizing this platform as a tool to create change and to inspire others. What advice would you give to me and my audience as well?
So there's a lot of advice because
Yes.
I've tried, tested, I've failed,
Uh,
I've succeeded.
mhm,
So these are the lessons learned. One of the things that I remember, I worked at the Star Publishing Company.
mhm.
I worked for the Star newspaper. I worked under the guidance of Rick Wayne. And one of the first things he ingrained that, like when I was 19, 20, when I worked there, he said to me, never have an opinion without facts. Because people can argue with opinions, but they
Yes.
can't argue with
With
facts.
facts. Sounds like Rick Wynn. It does sound like
Right.
him.
So that is one thing that I have always kept in mind. And that is why when we started the conversation, I said to you, yes, storytelling is great, but it needs to be rooted in facts.
Hmm.
So one of the first advice I give to any Caribbean creative, any creative anywhere else, if you are going to advocate for something, if you are going to agitate, lobby, make sure your facts are straight.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about Wikipedia facts. I'm not talking about, I just typed this in Google search engine, make sure you know what you were talking about. Because everyone is always, they are very quick to discredit your opinion if it
Mm-hmm.
is not a mainstream opinion.
It's true.
So once you start to go against the grain and you start to say things that people are not comfortable with, you have to understand that there will be questions about the validity of what you're saying. There will be questions about how factual what you are saying is. So always get that right. So, what I would advise, start local, start small, start with one story that irritates you
Mm.
enough
Right.
that you want to say something about,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you're talking about that story, make sure you get your facts straight. Do not misquote anybody. Do not make up
Mm-hmm.
things. Your credibility, your integrity, it is of the utmost importance. People can disagree with you, they can not like your personality or your character or whatever it is. But you see, once you have your credibility and your integrity, you are untouchable. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need a whole studio full of lights and high-end mics and whatnot. What you need is a purpose. You know
Wow.
what your purpose is. You know what you're going to lobby for, what you're going to advocate for. You know what you want to change in this world. Pick up your phone. Just pick up your phone. You can change the narrative because your voice can shift a policy conversation into action. And also, have been taught across the Caribbean to try and go at it alone. Don't do that. Find collaborators. You're not looking for clients, you're looking for partners. Be mature enough to know what you don't know. I am horrible at bookkeeping. I am horrible at numbers. That is why I have somebody who can do my finances. That is my trusted finance advisor. That is somebody who I know has my back. So you don't just find collaborators, but you find trusted collaborators. Because at the end of the day, your creativity, what you're doing here, Quinn, with the podcast, what all of the other creatives are doing, is not just art, it's activism. So act like it.
Absolutely. Wow. That was powerful. It was really powerful. And I like the point that you made in terms of, helping out your weaknesses, because sometimes we as creatives try to do everything. We are the marketing team, we are the financiers, we are the accountant, we are everything, and what we do best suffers because of that, because creating is what we do best, and we need, like you said, collaborators that will help, just make things easier on us, and it'll ultimately make our product better. And I think that is something that yeah, we lack, we sincerely lack, and it's something that we need to do a better job at, going forward. So I agree with that 100%. And yeah, I'm with you with that. We need to do a better job as collaborators and as creatives in general. So, so you're a Viewfort girl, right? Originally from Black
Born and
Bay.
bred.
From Black Bay.
Yes. From
Um,
Black Baby Fort.
tell me how growing up in that area. I mean, we kind of spoke about it a little bit in the beginning, but I want to come back to it, to just ground you a bit more. How did that shape your leadership style in terms of trying to become, well, not trying to become, becoming the leader that you are, the thought leader, the opinion leader, the voice that you are? What context do I need to understand to know who Alicia is today?
Boy, that's a really deep question, though. You sure you have time on this podcast? I
Take
grew
a
up in
shot.
Black Bay. I grew up in Black Bay Viewfort. Thankfully at a time without too much technology,
Mm-hmm.
phones or whatnot. So I was outside a lot. I grew up as a tomboy because there were more boys in our neighborhood than
Mm-hmm.
girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very grateful for the perspectives that gave me growing up. So I didn't have a wholly female perspective or a wholly male perspective. There's a balance. And that is what influences the equity work that I do today. Because when I say I'm a gender equity advocate, a lot of people are like, oh, you're a women's advocate. I was like, I advocate for both women and men
Right.
because I'm also a mother raising a boy in today's society. So I cannot be punching down and criticizing men and being unfair to them. So it requires a balance of perspective. Black Bay was difficult. I
Mm.
grew up very poor. No water, no electricity. And to come from that to where I am today is absolutely monumental. And Black Bay plays a pivotal role in that because the community raised me. When I was running off like a wild savage, there was always somebody to keep me in line, make sure I got home, make sure I was fed. They celebrate, and even today, they celebrate my achievements and accomplishments, even though they may not have seen me in a decade or two. Um, and that is also where some of my oldest and closest friends come from. They taught me that blood doesn't make you family. It is the people who are willing to ride for you through the good, through the bad, the people who are willing to grow with you, to argue with you, and find a way forward with you. These are the people who are your family. These are the people who show up for you when you are at your worst or at bottom, rock bottom, and they pull you up, kicking and screaming, dragging you to stand tall and to stand on your feet. They're the ones who see the potential in you. So that is what Black Bay taught me. And what that did for me is growing up, I didn't really stand up for myself a lot.
Mm.
I was always the quiet child. Yes, I quarreled a lot and chatted a lot. But when it came to standing up for myself, it was not something that I did very readily or very easily. But I had my war generals in front of me, and they let people know what time it was. They always talk about how amazing I have always been, the potential that I would always have. And I thought honestly that there was something in the drinking water in Black Bay because everybody was insane, right? But it is what has propelled me to do what I do today. I work in sustainable development because sustainable development for me is not a theory. It's not something that I study in books. It is a lived reality that I
Mhm.
grew up with, my friends grew up with, that we're still living in our reality in the Caribbean today. And what I do is change the world for the better because I really do want to create a society that my son is proud of because I am raising a man that society is proud of. And so it's only fair that it be reciprocated. And so when it comes to my leadership style, one, it is, I don't want to say inclusive and you take it as inclusive, like everybody. It's
Yeah,
inclusive
yeah.
to a point.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
inclusive to a point because there's also a point where there needs to be one general. One general. So when I give orders, that's it.
Yeah.
Um, it also allowed me to take people's perspective. So I take in everything. I listen to all of the praises. I also listen to all the negative comments and learn to filter through that because there are lessons in both the positive and the negative. And it is up to you as a leader to understand what is applicable to you. It may not be something that you want to hear, but it's something that you need to hear. And I've also learned that if there's no room for you at the table, then don't sit at that table. Don't even make a new table. Build an entire castle and hold your war meetings there
Mm.
because you are not for everybody. Not everybody can see your magic. Not everybody can buy into the vision. And it is important to know that in that vision, you're going to fail. And failing, I prefer failing over success because failure for me is market research. I prefer to fail fast, learn the lessons, and be successful and move on. And that is also the grace with which I give my teams that I work with across the globe. It's okay to make mistakes. If we're making the same mistake repeatedly, we have a problem. If we're
Yeah.
making different mistakes every time, I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that a lot because, and particularly the last point that you made, and I've seen that in, in the development of game changers as well. Every level that I climb to, there's a new challenge and new failures, failures that I didn't even think about when I started. And then you realize, okay, this means that we need to grow, to improve, and to enhance the product, and to enhance, our deliverables, so that we can get to a level where this product is one good, but also we are better individuals as well. And yeah, I'm seeing how Black Bay really shaped you into an individual who is well rounded. Yeah, because I think that's something that we in the Caribbean often take for granted. The type of communities we grew up in. We have so many different walks of life just in one small area. and you know all of them. You know this individual who works on the road, who is a lawyer, and you also know that the her neighbor who is a vendor, and these individuals are best friends, and they grew up in the same community. And that context allows us to really see things that maybe people in maybe the first world don't necessarily see in that way. So yeah, I'm seeing how it really develops you, and I agree with all of what you said. All right, so okay, so I know that you're very big on sustainability, like you said a little bit earlier on. How do you see? I have St. Lucia's here, but let's broaden it to the Caribbean. The Caribbean's youth contributing to global conversations on that, on sustainability and equity. Thankfully, this generation of young people seems to care a lot more than previous generations. So I'm happy about that. But how can we do a better job at doing that? And how can we utilize storytelling to do that?
You just asking me all the hard questions there today, huh?
Yes, yes, I am. I am.
I feel like not just our St. Lucian young people, I feel like our Caribbean youth, they're not waiting for permission to know how to advocate for our sustainable development. They're already doing it. You're already doing it. You
Mm-hmm.
join a cadre of young people across the Caribbean, across the global south, who are advocating for better livelihoods and better lives for their people, our people. And I would say to our Caribbean young people, because I have worked in the Caribbean, I've worked out of the Caribbean, I've worked Silicon Valley, in California, the people out there that we think are better than us, smarter than us, more charismatic than us, we're not. I need you to first and foremost have the audacity to believe in yourself and believe that you have a message and a voice that needs to be heard by people from all walks of life. So think globally, act locally, and just create fearlessly, okay? Because young people have an understanding of all of these serious issues and they see the issues. They know it's not a debate, it's a threat, it is a reality. And so now you have to embody that type of creativity, that resilience, that critical thinking when it comes to our sustainable development because we desperately need it. We need the new perspectives. We need the young people to come out and tell us what it is like for you. Because I can tell you what it's like for me when I was growing up as a young person. I want to still say I'm a young person, but I passed that age a little while back. But y'all have the right platforms. Y'all have the right passion to shift global conversations, not just as participants, but as leaders. We keep saying, and I mean, I grew up in the youth movement, and it was a mantra that I guess people got sick of me saying. Young people are not the leaders of tomorrow. Young people are the leaders of
Leaders of today.
today. And we need to stop waiting and waiting and wait. Just do it. Just do it. You have something to say. What you have to say is just as important as somebody on the other side of the globe. Do not feel like you are not smart enough, articulate enough, pretty enough, good looking enough. You don't have everything put together. You don't have the studio full of lights. You don't have the 20,000 followers that you need. Say it. Say it and know why you are saying it. Know your purpose. Know what it is you want to achieve, the impact that you want to have. And the people who are supposed to hear you, the people who are supposed to support you, the people who are supposed to collaborate you, they will find you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So use your voice, as smaller as it may seem. You don't know who is listening. I always say that because let me tell you, this podcast has reached individuals that I am surprised when they meet me on the street and tell me what I mean to them, what I have said that really changed their perspective. These are people that I don't know. I've never met them in my life, but they've seen me. They know me very well. They know what I stand for, what I believe in, and it's really amazing, to be honest. It always amazes me. It probably shouldn't amaze me as much as it does all the time, but it always amazes me. So it's a lived experience that I have as well. And yeah, you're right. Just putting yourself out there. I don't People don't really understand how important that is. Just I'm going to sound like the Nike, Nike's
Yeah.
slogan, but just do it. Just do it.
Mm,
Literally, just put yourself out there and share your perspective with the world. I like that a lot. All right. So you said I'm asking you all a hard questions. I'm gonna ask you a harder question, and that is a question about legacy.
mm.
When it's all said and done, as a change maker, as a mother, what would you like your legacy to be?
That question about
Mm.
legacy. That question about legacy is a hard one. I will tell you, when I was in primary school, they go around the classroom and they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that, Quinn?
Yes, yes.
Everybody wants to be a doctor, a police officer, a lawyer. And they came around to me and I said that I wanted to change the world. And everybody laughed. Everybody laughed because that's not a
Hmm.
profession.
Mm.
That has no title. It's
Mm-hmm.
very vague. People don't understand what it means. And that is what I have been doing. I have been changing the world for almost 20 years in the profession, in the career that I've chosen. And I've done it in the social impact space. So across young people, across women, across the judiciary, crime, politics, you name it. I've worked in that field. Urban resilience, smart cities, youth development. I've done it. I've done it. And I think in terms of legacy, I just want people to say that I changed the world for the better. That's about
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And I share that as well. I probably didn't always know that. I probably didn't know it as long as you have, from as young as you have. But yeah, I share that. I share that vision. Um, when I'm gone, people must say that they must miss me, right? But they must not. My impact should live long, long after I am gone. I always think about legacy as young as I am,
Mhm.
as young as people assume that I am as well. Um, I I I think about impact like that a lot, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to you. We're out of time already, but this genuinely has been one of, if not the my favorite podcast episode ever. I've done close to 100 episodes already, and I honestly I don't regret this at all, because it's rare that you find somebody who has kind of the passion for storytelling that you do. I'm a journalist by profession, and I believe that I was born to storytell, and it seems like you were born to storytell as well. So I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for agreeing to having this conversation with me. Don't be a stranger. I will be reaching out soon, whether it be on this platform or on another platform in my day job as a journalist. Thank you so much for this, and yeah, let's connect again.
Thank you so much, Quinn. Really appreciate being a guest on your podcast, and I'm always happy to support and collaborate with our young people because that was the chance that was given to me, and it got me where I am. And so the only thing that I can do is pay it forward. So feel free to call on me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will call on you. I definitely will. You don't have to worry about that. Anyhow, guys, this has been yet another episode of the Game Changers podcast. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for viewing. Remember to like and subscribe and share this with somebody who needs to learn about storytelling, and anybody who just wants to become a change maker. Anyhow, as usual, stay hungry, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. All right.